Welcome to the Rusted Garden. This is the next video in my series for growing 1 to 2 pound tomatoes. I'm going to cut some video in over the last month. I've been talking about these plants in different places and just show you what's been going on with them. But basically, due to early blight, tons of rain, high heat, the plants are really beat up. They are producing. I'm getting nice tomatoes out of there. They taste wonderful as the heirlooms do, but I'm not getting close to the 1-pounders that I want. This one could be close to that. We'll weigh that one up. That's the Aussie heirloom. So these are my tomatoes that are going to get 1 to 2 pounds, and I'm a bit distraught because the early blight came in. This plant's doing fairly well, but you can see the pattern in the yellowing, and you know, I'm dealing with early blight as I always do. Just got sprayed. This one's losing a lot of leaves. But everything from those tomatoes down there, you know, I'm going to get a couple of tomatoes. I had to remove all those leaves because of early blight. And it's just really part of my zone, Maryland Zone 7. In July, with the humidity and the weather and what the fungus likes, you know, it takes over on my plant. So I'm trying to do a series on these 1-pounders, but I don't know if they're going to survive or not. I hope that they do. So the good news is I do have green growth coming. I will get some tomatoes, but it's not lush of how I wanted it for the series to really get big tomatoes. But there's at least 2 plants here that I'm going to try and save, maybe 3, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick off all the green tomatoes, so I'll have a lot of fried green tomatoes, and I'm going to drop these plants off the stakes, remove the damaged leaves, spray them again, but bury the length of stem because they will root off and start to grow. And in a lot of places there are flowers. So this is the Aussie heirloom. This one is doing really well. Tons of good growth. I mean, I really like the plant, but I want these to get to a 1-pound size. And rather than have all this disease all over the place, the scraggly looking plants, I'm going to bury the roots because I have a good 45 days left, maybe 60 days worth of growing temperature here, maybe even longer before the frost comes in, but I'm really thinking about the cool nights. So these plants should go through September. I might still be able to get a 1-pound tomato, but I'm still going to be able to get a lot of production. And what you do is you can bury the entire length of stem, because once that contacts the soil, get some water on it, stays moist, it will root out. So I'm going to get some very strong plants. Let me show you how I do that, and let's weigh up that 1 tomato. So let's weigh this tomato up. I've been taking tomatoes off here. I picked a couple that were a little bit smaller than this one because I just needed to get them picked before they started rotting on the vine, and they were delicious. Your heirloom tomatoes may not be the prettiest, but they're going to taste wonderful. So these plants have struggled from the beginning. When I put down a composted product, at least I thought it was 100% composted, it wasn't. It still had to break down in the soil, and as it broke down, it competed for nitrogen for these plants. So these plants didn't get off to the best start. I corrected that. And then the early blight came, and we've had a lot of high temperatures that affect how, you know, tomatoes produce and grow, and also really a lot of rain at times. In fact, yesterday, or actually 2 days ago, it rained so much it filled up a glass this big overnight in one night. We had tons of rain and flash floods. Anyway, let's weigh this up. We're going to take care of these plants by dropping the vines into the ground and burying them. I'm going to show you how to do that, and hopefully we'll get heavier tomatoes, you know, come mid-September. So let's see, you know, maybe 12 ounces. Let's turn it over. Oh, it's 1 pound, 4.6 ounces, so not bad. Well, I guess it's a pretty good size. Yeah, 1 pound, 4.6 ounces. So some success, but I wanted to get a lot of the bigger tomatoes. So let's go look for one more to weigh and see how close that is. So this is my mortgage lifter. You know, easily this should be producing 1 to 2 pound tomatoes, but for the reasons I described, these plants struggled a little bit. Here are some of the bigger ones that I've just picked. 8.9 ounces, 10 ounces, probably another 8 or 9, 8.4 ounces. Here's a green one from up higher. That could have gotten to a bigger size, but I'm going to take off all the green tomatoes because I'm going to bury this stem into the ground with the hopes that I get those 16 ounces and really just more production towards the end of August, first couple of weeks of September. That's 11.6 ounces. So some of the size is coming, but because they've been so beat up, I'm going to just take care of all these plants. Let me show you how I set up the burial, so to speak, for these plants. I've pruned most of them, if that's what you can call it. I'm really just removing every leaf that looks like it has any disease or any yellowing to it. This is the Aussie, and I've actually decided to keep this one on the post. It's almost 7 feet tall. There's a lot of good top growth. When I cut out the leaves, there was enough kind of lush green growth that makes me think if I give it one more spray, with the changing temperature patterns, the leaf blight usually starts leaving our area. Well, it doesn't leave, but it's not going to really progress and grow. I'm also going to leave some tomatoes on there and just see what happens with, you know, this plant as is, really. This is the giant pink Belgium. I've pruned that down to really one main vine. And because they're long, when you drop them to the ground, you want to make sure that as you bend it, you don't snap the vine at the base where the root system is. And it's okay if you leave some exposed, or you have a little bit of a rainbow from where the stem goes into the ground to where the rest of the stem is going to go into the ground. These are vines. This is what tomatoes do, and it's perfectly okay to do this. And then I thinned it out, removed all the tomatoes. There's a couple flowers on there, and we'll see how that one does. And then this was, I think this was the mortgage lifter. Lots of different vines. I'll probably select 2 main ones, but these are going to get dropped into the ground too. So we have 2 plants that I'm going to bury the stems, and they've got a lot of green growth to it. This Aussie right here is going to stay as is. And then this is this the delicious variety? It's pretty yellowed out. Like even this leaf has to come off. So anything that looks like this, they all have to come off. I'm going to prune this down into just one stalk from the base there all the way up to here, and then from above my fingers to the left. That's all going to get cut off. All this is going to get cut off and removed, and I'm just going to plant this end. And just I want to see what happens in about 45 days worth of growth, just as an experiment. And these are the remains that I took off. Alright, let's get to planting, and I'll show you how I do that. It's pretty straightforward. Just real quick, we're going to remove all of the mulch and make sure that the stems contact the soil, and then we'll put the mulch back over them. So I cut the strings off of the giant pink Belgium, and it's really, really tall. I would love for it to fall this way, but it's just not going to do that. Like I'm trying to bend it that way, and it doesn't want to go there. And you can actually hear the vine crack a little bit. So you're just going to have to go with how it naturally falls, and it wants to fall this way. So I'm going to plant right where my shadow is, this whole part of the vine, and maybe try and put that down a good 6 inches deep, and then I will stake it just like this, and it's going to grow here. Again, this is not something I typically do, but you can do this with tomatoes because they are vines, and it's going to root out all along there. So let me get this set up here. I'll remove that mulch. So I dug the trench. I only went down maybe 3 to 4 inches because I was going into the roots of the Aussie, and I didn't want to damage a lot of roots. And 4 inches is fine. If you can go deeper, perfect. But this is going to just get dropped in here. I will bury the dirt over. And even though there's an arc there, don't worry about it. That may even send up some suckers, and you'll have some growth coming out of there. But once you see where the tomato plant is going to fall naturally, drop in a stake, and then go ahead and tie the end of the tomato plant up. And this is where I'm going to be looking for the new growth. This will get sprayed just to prevent any of the blight coming back. And again, the weather patterns are not really the weather patterns, but the temperatures are changing here. And coming into August, early blight kind of stops reproducing and becoming a problem. So maybe this will work. And don't put any fertilizer in here. No granule fertilizer, no organic fertilizer. Just a water-soluble fertilizer will work perfectly fine. And I'm going to use worm casting tea on this. So this is the mortgage lifter. I took out a big space here because the vine fell this way. This part of the vine is going to be above the ground. Again, that's perfectly okay. Most of this will be buried. This is a sucker that I'm going to put straight up here. So we'll have one plant growing here, and then the other ones will just be buried through there, and they're going to go right up that post. Again, do not put any granular fertilizer down here, even if it's organic. You want to feed this a water-soluble fertilizer. You want NPK, all the nutrients, to be readily available. That means it can be absorbed right away by these plants. And again, I'm going to use the worm casting tea. So I'll get this set up, get it tied up to the post here, and then I will drop the delicious variety down there, the single stem down there. And then I'll just show you what it looks like, and we'll hope for the best, and I'll give an update in about 4 weeks so you can see what the growth looks like, and hopefully we get another 1 pound tomato. I'd like to get more than just one. I mean, the whole goal was, you know, maybe to get half a dozen or so, maybe a dozen tomatoes, but sometimes gardening just doesn't work out that way. So the plants have been pruned drastically, and the stems have been dropped into the ground and covered. This is the delicious variety that was actually right here, and the whole stem is buried. So you can mound up some dirt around the stem that's the original that goes into the ground just like that. And then it just came across here. So it's a tiny little delicious variety plant. We'll see what that grows into. The giant pink Belgium made its way over to here. Again, it's okay if you have a little bit of an arc or rainbow in the stem. Don't worry about it. It might even send up some growth. I don't know if you'll be able to see this with the sunlight, but all these bumps right there, those are root nodes, and that's where the roots will come out. So as soon as you get moisture, when you have a lot of rain and a lot of humidity, your plant might start bumping out like that. It's not some freak disease, that's just perfectly normal. The Aussie heirloom we kept just as is. Had enough growth that I liked it. These are all going to get sprayed with an antifungal. And the mortgage lifter came all the way from over there and actually fell this way, and I kept all the stems. So I have a bunch growing right up here, an individual right down there growing along this stake, and then a sucker that I kept right there. So we could end up with really great growth, lots of tomatoes, or the disease can come in and take these plants. So stay tuned. So in about 4 weeks I'll do the follow-up for this. Hope this gives you some idea of how you can manage all your tomato plants, just not the 1 or 2 pounders. If they've grown pretty tall, they've gotten damaged, you can bury the roots. We did get 1 pound, I think 4 ouncer out of here. That doesn't cut it. I want to get, you know, at least 6, maybe a dozen of really large tomatoes, plus a bunch of other ones. And even after all this work, taking the tomatoes off, let me just show you what I made, and that is my reward for taking care of these tomatoes. And as I said, the reward for taking care of the plants, about 4 pounds of my take on tomato, basil, and mozzarella. Olive oil, red vinegar, shredded mozzarella. The green tomatoes will be used tonight. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out my seed shop at www.therustedgarden.com. Thanks.